Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hi, I'm Shay Rippinger of Hip to Hoopla, and this is going to be a little bit of a different episode of the Hoopla Y'all show. I am your host, Shay Rippinger. I talk about health, humor, and hooping. And in this particular episode, this is actually going to be number one of six of a six-part series of um, love and loss, from grief to peace. This theme of this show is grief. And the reason why I'm doing this particular show and this series is from some things that are going on with me personally and with a lot of people that are around me too. So I'm very affected by family and friends who are very affected by these different things. So uh, for me personally, this has been a little bit of a rough month. My cat, who 19 and a half years old, just passed away this week. Capri has been with me almost half of my life. And I brought her home on 9/11, and she passed peacefully at home. I mean, frail and, as peacefully as you can by leaving the planet. But anyway, it was, yeah, and it was us alone. So me and my dogs. So husband was out of town traveling, but anyway, I just wanted to talk about this a little bit and how we can get through this. So this isn't all just about death, but about healing through love and loss. So whatever the case may be, it could be a partner, a spouse, a child, parent, family, friend, pet. It could be a loss of a job. I just had somebody close to me lose their job, and it came as a big shock to them. And it could be an illness. I have another very close person to me going through ALS, and it's big, as you can well imagine. Somebody who's missing, somebody who's incarcerated. There's all kinds of reasons why we could be experiencing something that may not necessarily bring us a lot of joy, and it could bring us a lot of devastation and produce a lot of emotions in us. And so we need to move through and deal with this. That's what I'm here to do. So this particular, I'm going to try and keep this short. I did a lot of research on this. I have like a lot of notes. So again, this is a six-part series. This is part one. This is on grief. So I'm going to go through the steps, and these aren't the traditional steps. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross came up with the five stages of grief. Hers are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. So those have been covered a lot. I'm actually not going to be working on those particular ones. Mine are grief, loss, mourning, reflecting, healing, and peace. So those are my six steps. So again, I like to talk about health, humor, and hooping. So we're going to get to all three of those things. And my health tip of helping to move through this is a basic one. I've said this a lot before, but water is such an essential thing to help you get through grief, loss, and deal with it in a good way. One of the reasons is water. It not only nourishes your body, but it helps move toxins out. So when you're dealing with grief, you have stress hormones going through your body. So stress can manifest itself in many different ways. Grief, loss, all of these things I just talked about are, some of those variations of that. So water is one of those essential health things, number one on the list of just, do some water. So also on that water note, I'm going to say this in kind of a funny way, but of course I've experienced it in not such a funny way, but crying. The part of the grief that I have really allowed myself to do is cry a whole heck of a lot. And And one of the reasons for doing that is to move through the emotions. I have a small little story about this, and that is when my grandfather passed away, my mom was very devastated, and her dad was her world and very important to her. And so I knew that I went with her and to help deal with everything, and doing the silliest, stupidest stuff possible just to keep her together. And because I knew if she went down, she wasn't coming back up again for a long time, and we had a lot of things to deal with. We had to, sell and close and move an entire household and lifetimes worth of stuff from my grandfather. We had to plan a funeral, do all of that stuff, and this was in another state. So, and then we had to get back to work and travel and do all of that kind of stuff. So there was a lot going on. Interesting part of this story, why I bring this up, is that by dealing with it in the quick way that we needed to deal with everything possible, we didn't really deal with it. And about a year later, me and my mom were having a conversation, and we were talking about different things of little odd ways that grief was coming out in, and it was poking holes through our lives in just very weird, random ways. So you might get angry at something, you might get sad at something, and it might, you wouldn't have a relation of what it was. And then we talked about it, and she said, we never really mourned Grandpa. We didn't go through that. We didn't take the time to do that. And so it's poking out through these weird, interesting ways that seem sometimes nonsensical and not related to the situation at hand. So when my mom passed, I went down for the count. I lost it. I cried. And, at least, a month of going through her house and doing all kinds of stuff. And it took me a long time to process through it. And it, and I'm not saying that, the grief ever gets, time passes, and that passage of time helps the nerves from being so shredded and raw. But interestingly enough, I think one of the reasons why crying, releasing a lot of that water that, through the tear ducts and all the phlegm that came about too, but actually going through that process, I had a friend, a very close friend, say something, and she said, I never thought you would get through it, because my mom was my best friend. And so she just didn't think I would see the light of day, after having lost my mom. And interestingly enough, there was a time where I was just at peace. And I noticed how quiet it was. And it was because I had nobody to fight with anymore. I didn't have that person who could just push my button in the middle of a day, and we could be talking lovingly, and then all of a sudden we could get into this torrid fight. But it was very peaceful. And it was an interesting juxtaposition of, having her and not having her in my life. And I loved her dearly, loved her. And, but anyway, by going through, by releasing all the tears, and going through that grief and stepping into it, really, I think, helped, and it really helped get me on a healing path. Same thing with my cat. This it's been going on for quite a while, but of the thought, the dread, the kind of the fear of losing her, and I didn't want to put that thought in there, but as my mom would say, none of us gets out of this alive. So, which is very true. And she would also say, when your number's up, your number's up, which I used to always think was callous, but again, very true as well. So anyway, health tip, water, cry. Those two things are very helpful. So water will help replenish so that you don't go dry. So anyway, but seriously, water is really helpful for the body. And it's also helpful, here's another thing, is that when you're crying, it drains you. This takes a lot out of you, the depression, the emotions. But I find that I get a headache after I've cried a lot. And so I also find that when I'm dehydrated, I get headaches. So when I hydrate with a lot of water, that is very helpful. Okay, now we're going to move along to a little bit of a brighter note here. And that is one of the things that I found very helpful is to bring as much smile, joy, and laughter to your life. And for me, in the time of the healing with my mom's passing, it came in the form of watching comedies, listening to comedians. I didn't watch any dramas. I didn't want to watch anything or read anything or hear anything about people dying. That just wasn't what I wanted to, experience in my entertainment value or just input, because I was already dealing with that. So by doing that, it helped put happy endorphins into my body. So every time I could even crack a small smile, or at least just have that, the change in energy and the change in the endorphins, to help brighten that, lighten that stress level and brighten my, my sense of being, that really helped a lot. So laughter yoga is a way to help get through some of this grief process. So I'm going to do a little fountain laughter, and actually, instead of a fountain laughter, I'm going to do a little different thing. I actually had a different plan on here, and that is after my mom's passing, I went to a laughter yoga class or a laughter yoga session, and led by the instructor. And I had enough guts to go up to the instructor afterwards, because when I went there, I didn't feel like laughing. I didn't really participate in the laughter, but just me being in the room to be around other people who were laughing was very helpful. So even though I didn't have it in me to laugh, but I talked to her later afterwards, Deb Whitaker. So shout out to my friend Deb, who got me into laughter yoga, and helped me become a certified laughter yoga leader. She explained to me a process of a sigh of a laughter yoga exercise. So it's not all about being happy and laughing, although if you can do that, great. But this one is just a breath exercise. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take a nice deep breath in. Please do this with me 3 times if you can. And if you can do it with a smile, great. Even if you have a fake smile, it's going to change some of the endorphins in your body. So take a nice deep breath in with me. And then breathe and exhale it out. And just sigh and let it all out with a sigh of relief, and just sigh it out. And breathe it in one more time. And exhale, sigh it out. If you can, smile through this. If you want, close your eyes. You can keep your eyes open as well. Exhale it all out. Empty out the lungs completely. And one more time. This is our last time. Bring it in. And then exhale it out. Thank you for trying that with me. At the end of laughter yoga exercises, we take our hands together, and we do this twice. So you're welcome to do this with me. Very good, very good, yay. Very good, yay. And that helps activate some acupressure points on your hands. So this is a good thing. I was also doing, in this vast amount of research that I was trying to do to make this series a compact, information-filled, short, and meaningful and helpful. There was another one about shaking and laughing, and so I'm going to get into that in next parts of this series. But I just wanted to do that sigh laughter yoga exercise with you. Okay, now on that note, I'm going to do a little hooping exercise, hooping tutorial. So I'm going to scoot my chair over. And hopefully I'm going to, let's see here, I need to adjust the camera here if I can. If it'll go up a touch. Okay, there we go. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take that same sigh that we were doing, but this is going to be a ghosting isolation up and down. And you can actually do this in various directions. So I'm going to have one hand on the hoop and one hand that's going to look like it's on the hoop, but it's just ghosting. So if you have love and loss, so hopefully this isn't making you cry, but do this. I would like you to try this as a breathing exercise. So even if you don't have a hula hoop per se, you can use whatever size you want. Just imagine this. So you can actually go through the motions and just imagine this and try this in your mind's eye as a visualization. So you still get the same brain chemicals as if you were physically doing this by just imagining and visualizing this. So what we're doing is I'm taking one hand. So this is a linear ghosting isolation. So I have the hoop in my left hand, and my right hand is what I call a trophy hand. So it's going to look like it's doing something. So I'm going to over exaggerate and just show you what I'm doing with this as I'm going up. And I'm going to grab with that right hand. That's going to be my new working hand. Now my left hand is going to be that trophy hand and working down. So one of the keys to this particular movement is that I want to be symmetrical with this and keep it going. And I'm keeping the circle going the whole time, moving it up and down. So I can do one hand, one hand, one hand. So I could do just this if I wanted to. Now, if you have a spiral taped hoop, you're going to notice that the hoop does not continue going in that same circle. So, but if you're trying this as a breath exercise, so you want to kind of release some energy, I want you to try and do this with some nice posture. So take a nice deep breath in, roll the shoulders back, exhale it out, keep the chest nice and lifted, belly tucked in, hips tucked under, little pelvic tilt. And you're going to try this and going up and down and up and down. And on the up, you can do an inhale. And on the down, you can do an exhale. Inhale it up. Exhale it down. Now you can do this to the side on an angle. Up to the other side on an angle. You can do this to the side. You can also take this and bring this back and bring it forward. So there are lots of variations to do with this and different isolations with that, with twist folds and things like that. So I did want to get an actual hoop move in here. And also when you're moving around and getting some physical activity, it's going to help the grief process. So by getting up and moving and not just sitting and, and if you need to, cry during this, so if you want to cry, if you want to breathe, it's going to help you move through the loss process, the grief process. So whatever you're going through that may not be the reason why you're not the happiest camper right now. But, I'm trying to help you get to being, even if you have a happy moment, that's okay. One happy moment leads to two happy moments, leads to three happy moments. You might have a sad moment. You may have 5 sad moments, but you might have one little happy moment in there. So as the time passes, you will be able to get to more of those happier moments and being able to enjoy more time with other people and things like that. So I really appreciate you checking in and watching this broadcast of the Hoop Love Y'all show. Thank you so much. And I'm trying to reach the goal of my 50 shows for the year. So this is a 6-part series. This is going to finish out my 50 episodes for the year so that I can reach 100 episodes. And this is episode 95. And this is number 1 of the 6 of the Love and Loss series, From Grief to Peace. So hashtagging both of those, Love and Loss, and hashtagging From Grief to Peace. So I hope this helps out a little bit. I'm moving through this as well. So if you're moving through something, and it could be as simple as just not having a great day, but it could be something as devastating as losing your spouse or a parent, a child, whatever the things are, that whatever the thing or things that you are going through. And I'm going to dedicate this show to a friend of mine, Colleen, who lost her son, and she's still very affected by, the loss of her son. And I'm going to be trying to dedicate these shows. There are so many people that I want to dedicate these to, and part of it. it's their private journey. So, I would like to have their permission to do that first. But anyway, I just was messaging with Colleen. So, Colleen, I hope that you don't mind, and also hopefully appreciate that I'm dedicating this to you today. So, this particular broadcast. So, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you guys. And, okay, and I'm going to ring this little bell because every time, it's Wonderful Life, when you hear the bells ring, an angel gets its wings. So if you're dealing with loss, please remember that. So, if you need to ring some bells during your days, please do that. Whatever brings you a little bit of joy, comfort, smiles, laughter, and a little bit of happiness. So thank you so much. Rock on. Peace out. I'll see you guys on the next show tomorrow. All right. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching.